You used to be an actress.
Yes, I did. I spent 10 years in Los Angeles.
The last 2 years, you guys made over $700,000 with your coaching business. So, what was the tipping point in your business that allowed for this expansion, this, critical mass point?
I would almost say the tipping point happened so far back earlier when I decided to only focus on.
Okay, we're here with Kim Argetsinger. She's an amazing mindset and business coach that I had the pleasure to interview a few years back. And I'm excited to talk to a fellow mindset coach because your clients are killing it. And I want to dive deeper into your methods and, your journey as well, because you used to be an actress.
Yes, I did. I spent 10 years in Los Angeles doing the acting thing. So happy to share about that as well. But yes, you are not wrong.
Beautiful. Would love to dive deeper into that. Yeah, tell us actually more. How did you transition from acting to coaching?
That's not a normal transition. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yeah. So when I was in college, I studied psychology. I've always been fascinated in humans and human
Yeah.
behavior and the human mind and what drives us. I did a lot of research on in undergrad with infants, just studying like facial expressions, and I was just fascinated by that. And my other love and my other study of human behavior was acting at the time, and I've always believed that you can make money doing things on your terms. I've always believed anything you put your mind to, you can create. So
Yeah.
instead of going on to get my PhD, I picked up and moved to LA, and I spent 10 years doing the acting thing there. Had a lovely, incredible time, got to work on some really incredible projects. And I just hit a moment in time where I no longer loved the business of acting. Acting in
Mhm.
that industry is very much a business. I loved the craft, but the business side of it was really starting to get me to a place that I was like, I see where this leads, and I don't want what's kind of at the end of that. And that's when I picked up, moved to New York City. I joked to start over. I thought I wanted to stay in the entertainment world. I got a job as an agent working in the advertising world, and very quickly found
Mm.
out that that was not the place for me, and had a very serendipitous conversation with a coach during that time, and found the coaching world and took a year-long program, and kind of here we are. So that's the very circuitous way I ended up. I
Mm.
can give more details, but that's how I landed here.
And I think that's the DNA of your coaching, because what stood out to me, and it's something kind of similar to what I do, you don't just focus on mindset or business. So you're not an either or coach. Like a lot of experts prefer to specialize in either or, but it feels like your experience with our advertising and your experience with psychology led you to, this yin and yang approach to coaching.
Very, very much so. I'm a very big believer in the blend. I don't know if you've read The Medici Effect. It's a great book, but they talk about how innovation is really when you take these disparate, like these
Mm-hmm.
different elements, these different industries,
Exactly.
and like that's where we find new ways of doing things. And
Exactly.
that's how I like to approach coaching. And I definitely think business in particular, it's not all strategy, it's not all mindset. It's very much that intersection of where those two come
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and back when I was teaching martial arts, the fact that I combined it with personal development allowed me to stand out and do something very, very different and unique in the market. Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, if you're struggling to stand out, think of what are your passions? Could you combine them? Could you mix and match, right?
Yeah, we all have so much experience that we forget we can draw on, especially in business from our previous lives. So yeah, how can you combine those things? I love that you combine the martial arts with personal development.
Yeah. And this do you see this with your clients? Because this is super frequent for me at least, right? Somebody decides to become an expert, a coach, or maybe even an entrepreneur, and all of a sudden they put on the entrepreneur or coach hat and they just have this sudden amnesia of all of the wins, all of the experience, all of the fights that they fought, or all of their history, and they're just not using it in their marketing or in their storytelling. They just lock that version up in a closet.
I think it's so common. I think when we start something new, our minds go to the beginner mindset, which I think is so
Mhm.
valuable in so many ways. But I really do think it's so common for us not to see and not to see like where that intersection is, where we can bring
Yeah.
things over, how we're always stacking life on top of life, experience on top of experience. I mean, that's what top corporations are looking for when they're hiring people. And I think we tend to forget that when we start a business, when we're in a new world. And like you're saying, it's just such a beautiful way to weave in storytelling to your
Hmm.
marketing when you can start to see those outside
That's
experiences.
that's a very interesting perspective. Like, what if you had to write a resume before deciding to start a
Yeah.
business?
Like what would you put on that resume? It's I geek out on research, but there's a ton of research right now and just a ton of like what's going on in the corporate world where they are quite literally looking for people in top positions that maybe didn't go to college or have very different backgrounds or were in the arts because of what we're talking about, because
Yep.
of that beautiful benefit of having new experience to bring into an existing industry. So for everyone listening, all of your past success and so-called failures and experience absolutely counts.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask because you had a very interesting tipping point in your business. Like the last 2 years, you guys made over $700,000 with your coaching business, and it's very interesting because you're exclusively doing one-on-one coaching. Like most programs are group coaching, and right, you love to have this personal touch. So what was the tipping point in your business that allowed for this expansion, this critical mass point where you just hit that compounding effect beauty and just go
Oh
up?
gosh, I don't know if I could point to one. Thank you for referencing that. Yeah, we only offer, I should say I have a team, but I only offer one-on-one coaching. I would almost say the tipping point happened so far back earlier when I decided to only focus on one and really trust and stay in my lane as opposed to chasing
Mhm.
what I thought I was supposed to do or what I was being told at that time in the industry was kind of the only path to scale. So I
Yeah.
think the only reason, not the only reason, but like one of the reasons I've been able to generate $1 million revenue in the past 4 years, 700K in the last two from one-on-one was because 5 years before that, I had to first decide, hey, I trust myself. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going all in
Yeah.
on. I'm okay with this not looking the same as what the industry is telling me. So I would actually say it was the trust at the year, like 5 years ago that led to what we're seeing now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in a similar process myself. I'm letting go of all of the things in my business that I'm not passionate about. That's not a hell yes. I don't care what my business coaches told me, I don't know how many years ago. And it's not an easy pattern to let go of because you've had so many authorities say, no, this is the way to grow a business. Shut up and do it. But your heart is yelling inside of you. And you just silence that voice, until it's kind of dim and numb, or you start to feel effects in your body and stuff like that. So I decided, you know what? I'm just not going to do any of the stuff that doesn't fire me up. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. And it comes as a powerful validation that this is the way. Yeah. Because what I'm hearing, by the way, guys, this is not the invitation to, oh, one-on-one coaching is the way to do it. It's not the dogma,
Yes, there are
right?
plenty of most of my clients don't want to do their business this way. So yes, thank you for saying that. That feels very important.
Yeah. It's just saying yes to what's a hell yes for you and just trusting that like the thing that's yours will lead you to your dreams, like following that intuition, that heart, that calling, let's say, of doing things your way.
Yeah, and if I can add, I think knowing that it doesn't have to look the way everyone else is doing things, and I think our space in particular, and it's not a bad thing. I think we have such a beautiful industry and such a
Yeah.
beautiful space, and I think there can sometimes be almost many people. Not me, I left the acting world, but many people are leaving the corporate rat race, so to say,
Yeah.
world. And I think we can unintentionally recreate that in our space where it starts to feel like people are just chasing more success, more money for the sake of scaling
Yeah.
without looking at why did I start this business in the first place? And I think that's just the piece that can be helpful to come back to. For me, it was like, I started this because I believe in one-on-one. One-on-one changed my life personally. It's what I'm the best at. It's what I've
Yeah.
seen get my clients the best results. I don't want to move away from that. There's nothing wrong with groups or masterminds. That just happens not to be my zone of genius. And I don't want to move away from the very reason I started this. And I'm okay with if my business doesn't grow as fast as another
Yeah.
business. I make plenty of money. Like, it's okay if we don't make more, and we also will. So if that's helpful for people to hear, I think that can be maybe a way. One is not better than the other, but coming back home to that can be helpful.
Incredibly helpful. And, I just published a case study with one of my clients, and that was kind of the exact thing that she was describing. Like, because she reached the state that every single entrepreneur is chasing in business, that state of peace, that state of freedom, that state of, I just love doing things my way, and that's okay. I don't care if I make less money. And of course, she's making more money now because she's in that state, right?
That's the irony, right?
Yeah, when you don't need the thing is when you get the thing, always, because it's like, yeah, yeah, it's a very, very
It's so
powerful energy to be in.
fascinating how that happens. I mean, it's detachment, and when we're it's that beautiful place where we can both be aligned and want something, and also so not need it, and be so, like you said, peaceful and settled and grounded with where
Yeah.
we are now. It's funny how, just fascinating. I've seen it myself, and just through so many clients, how that just opens up everything. And when we're in that chasing mentality, not that you can't create results that way, it's just
Yeah.
very tough to sustain success, or to not have it fracture other parts of your life.
Are you familiar with Bashar?
I don't think so.
He's so Daryl Anka is the guy channeling this, and some people will click off right now off of this video, but it's an alien entity, right? That's being channeled by
Oh,
this guy. So
fascinating.
they said something that really stuck with me. They said, "There's nothing more exhausting than trying to be someone you're not."
Yes.
Right?
So true.
And
Even when I was acting, when you're acting, your job is not to try to be someone you're not. Your job is to try to embody the character and be them fully and live their life. It would be so exhausting otherwise, as to what you're saying. And then
mm-hmm,
obviously, most of us are not, hopefully, we're not acting, right? We're like embodying our roles as CEOs. It is
mm-hmm.
exhausting and very tough to sustain something you're not, and something that's not in alignment. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. And
That alien is very smart.
yeah, and also acting like it's acting is also channeling in many, many ways. And something I would like to tap into as well, we feel like, in terms of embodying, and in terms of being someone you're not. And the truth is, the states of fear, the doubt, the worries, that's not the real us. And that's why it's so exhausting. And that's why, because we're experiencing that much fear, we lean on the authority or the systems too much.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you and I'm sure both teach and coach clients, fear is normal. It's part of the human
Yeah.
experience. And when we're in fear, when we're not trusting ourselves, I think that's when we can pedestal people who we think know better, or who are authorities, like you said, or who
Yeah.
have the secret or have the way. And it's not to say that there isn't a benefit from learning from others or modeling others. That there can be a lot of room for that. But I think when you're coming from fear or lack of self-trust, you're kind of giving your power away in that
Oh, yeah,
way. I think
absolutely.
that's where we get ourselves into hot water.
For sure. For sure. To segue a bit, what was your favorite movie that you were in?
Oh gosh. So I was admittedly in a lot of indie films that I don't know that I would watch, but were a lot of fun to play with. What was my favorite one? I did the last film I did before I moved out of the acting role was a movie called Safari.
Are on day one of our 3-day safari in the bush.
Beautiful Zebras.
Our dream safari has kind of turned into a nightmare.
We went to South Africa for 7 weeks, and we filmed on a game
Mm,
reserve with Kevin Richardson, who's like the lion whisperer. And
nice.
it was, I mean, going to South Africa and getting paid to go there and be there was just an incredible experience. But we would literally go to a game reserve every day. Part of my work day was going to the game reserve, and we'd have to get on one of those, what do you call them? The like safari vehicles. It was like a 45-minute drive to set, where you're just passing giraffes and zebras and all sorts of animals. It was a pretty incredible experience.
I love that. I love that. What was like, because as mindset coaches, we're like full of mindset issues ourselves. That's why we're so good at fixing them. So, what was the mindset challenge that you had to overcome on your journey?
Yeah, was trying to think how I can answer this in a way that would be beneficial for everyone. So something that comes up for me that maybe feels important to speak to, I think there's a big difference between mindset and trauma. And I've had quite a lot of trauma to work through. And I just say that just from a place of responsibility, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes otherwise we hear mindset and we have a trauma response and we like, I should just positive my way through this or something like that. And so I
Right.
just want to be responsible and speak to that. So in full transparency, I've done a lot of work around trauma. Mindset wise, I would say one of the biggest patterns for me that comes up at every stage of business, and what I see for most of us is we have one or two core mindset challenges, hurdles, and they never fully go away, right? Like we work through them, we're able to notice them, we have the tools to move through them. And what I find is at every level, they tend to just rear their head in a new,
Right.
funky way. One of my biggest things is wanting to be liked and not offend people, not bother people, not make people feel bad. Essentially, it's a connection type thing, and so that's been one of the big. When I started my business, I didn't want to post in other Facebook groups and offend the owner of the group, and it
Yeah.
just or what would people think? As I grow further along in business, it's if I share this income on it, am I going to make someone feel bad? So it's just been something that at every level I've just had to notice and catch and work through. I'd say that's probably been the biggest one for me.
Interesting. Interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. What is your process of managing that?
Well, I work with my own coach and I have for almost 5 years. So that's
Yeah.
a big part of it. And
Very
I
important.
think I do mindset practices and tools. So I do mindset work every single day. I have for probably 10 years at this point. So very religious around that. And for me, I'm very aware of my patterns now. So I can move through something in 2 minutes. The biggest thing for me is noticing what it is.
Beautiful.
If I can see it for what it is and kind of create that separation from myself to my thought, if I have just that much room to at this point to see it, it's a lot easier for me to see, wait a second, this is that pattern. Is
Yeah.
that really what I want to listen to? If I'm coming from my higher self, if I'm showing up as the CEO in my business or in my life, like what's the thought I want to have? What's the story I want to choose? What do I actually want to believe here? And that's kind of what I'll walk myself through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to Joe Dispenza recently talk about the fact that he experienced, despite teaching, reaching a higher state of mind and reprogramming your brain for what you actually want to have happen. He said, I have stressful moments all the time, all day, and it's not a question of having them or not. It's a question of how fast you get out of it.
Yep, yep, yep. And I think, I mean, Joe Dispenza's work is brilliant, creating a higher level of mind. I love how he speaks about that. And I think it's exactly that. I think it's the goal is not how do I not become a human having a human experience with a human brain. Our brain is
Yep.
evolutionarily wired for survival. Like this stuff's going to come up. It's exactly that. How do I just get better and better and better at noticing and moving through it and better at self-regulating essentially and
Hmm.
choosing the higher level of thought and being that serves me, my business, my life.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And speaking of, doing things your way, what is your favorite way of attracting your people, your clients?
Big question. What's my favorite way of attracting? So what I would say, I've pretty much been using the same strategy in my business from day one. I'm really big on how can I offer value first and create a relationship and create a lot of trust with someone. And I'm also very big on screening for fit. I've worked with some of my clients have been with me 4 or 5 years. So for me, I'm not looking to have everyone become my client. I'm
Yeah.
really looking for how can I give as much value to everyone who will probably never become my client? And then how can I do so in a way that's also narrowing in and screening for
Hmm.
people who are going to be a really great fit and help them understand why I'm going to be the best person to support them specifically. So really leading with value first is my favorite way. And then finding ways to invite people in to see, do we have coaching chemistry? And is this a good
Yeah.
fit for me to support you? And I can get more specific in terms of the strategies if that feels useful for our conversation, but like big picture, that's the way I like to think about it.
I love that. I love that. I started implementing something similar in, my business. I had gotten so good at coaching, at closing clients in the first call, that it came to my detriment. I was closing not necessarily the right people. So I slowed down and added some filters. I added a second call. I added some homework. And, if you don't complete your homework, then, this is our first date together. Then what is it going to
Yeah.
look like a few years from now, right?
Yeah. I think it's so important. I think it's something we don't always talk a lot about. I talk with my clients a lot about not just bringing in leads, but bringing in the right kinds of leads who are going to
Yeah.
become right fit clients. And I think I want to be mindful for someone who's listening. This doesn't suddenly mean like we're looking for perfect clients and to just push everyone away and people who don't have
Mm-hmm.
problems or anything come through the door. But to like what you're saying, is this someone who's coachable? Is this someone who's going to follow through? How are we being sure to screen for that? And I'm always big on I'm going to very clearly let someone know if they're not a fit. I like to have some pre-qualifying questions in my sales process, and I'm very happy to refer someone out. And I think
Yeah.
it's the detachment is what we were talking about earlier, right? If we have that mentality, I find that also helps us then to attract people who are a really great fit, which makes business so much easier.
Mm-hmm. And do the majority of your clients come from your Facebook group or from your YouTube channel?
So I guess I technically have a YouTube channel. We don't do anything with my YouTube channel, that we just repurpose my lives
Yeah.
on my website. So I don't, maybe some people have come from my YouTube channel. We are currently actually building dashboards to get cleaner data so that I can answer this better.
Mm.
But from the data I have, from what people tell me, for everyone listening, I have a Facebook group, Instagram account, and then a podcast. I'd say the majority come from my Facebook group and or a combination of that and my podcast. And
Interesting.
then I find I have an Instagram account, but I find that tends to be people from my Facebook group will come follow me on Instagram as well. And that almost acts as like a extra touch point and confirmation. If someone's like thinking about hiring me, I'll notice they're watching my stories and that sort of thing.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And I don't know if that's helpful in terms of the detail getting into the weeds, but that's how I see them fitting together.
Yeah, it was just something I was also curious about. But it comes down to, is the way that you're generating leads, is it making you happy? Is it giving you energy, or is it taking away energy from you? Right. And are you allowing more of yourself to be? That's not a question for you, and it's just a
Yeah.
rhetorical. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
And
very interesting.
the thought that comes up just as you're saying that is, I think, is it congruent to the work you're doing? So
Mm,
I offer one-on-one, so it makes sense for me to generate leads in a way where I'm going to have a one-on-one conversation with them, or I'm
yes.
going to share value in a way where they can understand that. Whereas if I was selling something completely different, I
Mm-hmm.
might have a very different, this is not to say Facebook groups are like the thing for everyone. That's just one of the most congruent ways I can go in depth on a long live
Yeah.
stream and, invite people in. It's going to be the most congruent. Same with my podcast to the one-on-one work. And this also feels important to share because otherwise I feel like we don't have context and we're like, Facebook and a podcast is the thing that makes you money.
Yeah.
Those are also the things I focused on, right? I've picked those. I've had my Facebook group for however many years now, my podcast for however many years. That's also where I'm focusing my marketing energy. So it would make sense
Love
that
that.
that is where my leads are coming. If I focus on YouTube, YouTube would be the thing.
I love that. Yeah. And that's
Like every strategy
100%.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really a question of what you enjoy doing. Yeah. For me, it's definitely YouTube. I love making videos and having conversations like this, and just making videos where I have conversations with people. And before I was making more like kind of entertainment based videos, like kind of influencer based. And I hired a marketing coach, and he said that I'm not attracting the right people. My wolf dog is going a bit wild, as it should.
My jungle cat might come through later, so we'll have a animal off.
Let me just introduce you.
Hi. Oh,
Hello.
what's your
Say
cat's
hi,
name? Hi,
Thor.
sweet baby.
Ah.
Thor.
Hmm.
Oh, hi, Thor. Hi,
He just
sweet baby.
loves to bite everything.
Is it a puppy?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like four
sweet baby.
months. 4 months and 400 teeth.
Yeah.
Let me
It
just
gets easier when they get a little older. Yeah, we have to keep that. Your puppy is so cute. But you were saying, and I think it's so fascinating to see how, well, two thoughts came up when you were saying that. I think every marketing strategy works. And I think that if if you're consistent, but then if you're finding something you actually enjoy, you're going to be consistent with it and it can work for you. With the caveat and with what you're saying is it will work, but that doesn't necessarily mean if it's not congruent to what you're selling, that it's going to work in terms of bringing in the right kinds of leads. And I think that's just the place we talked about the intersection at the beginning of our conversation, where we just want to have that intersection of is this congruent for me, so I want to be consistent, and is this congruent with the types of clients and leads I want to bring in, and looking for that in your strategy. Because
beautiful.
I feel like that's kind of what you were saying when you were giving that example. I know the puppy came in, so but does that feel like what you were saying?
Yes, 100%. 100%. In terms of your identity, right? What was like, how do you see what's the main difference between Kim when you started out with your business and you right now?
Anything? I think identity is such a great question. It's something I do a lot of work with clients around. And for everyone who doesn't know the term identity, or just in terms of what we mean here, identity really is what encompasses all of your mindset. And it really sets the parameters and boundaries up for how you live your life and the results you will or will not have. And our brains really like congruence. And so how you see yourself, your identity, your mindset, all of that, your brain is going to work really, really hard to have your external world and results be congruent with that identity. So if you have the identity of an ex-actress, if you have the identity of an ex-employee, if you have the identity of something that isn't fitting to what you're wanting to create, it's really going to affect your results. And I think when I started my business, I didn't have the identity of someone who was successful and who was a great coach, right? This is an identity I had to really build and live into. I didn't have the identity of someone who, I've always been really good with money, but to allow myself to say, wow, I make a lot of money, and I have the identity of someone who can say that and be comfortable with that. Like, these are all things I had to really become, as Joe Dispenza would say. And I think it's vastly different I think I'm a completely different person, honestly, from 7 years ago, definitely from when I was acting 10, 15 years ago. And totally me as well. Just, I think you get what I'm saying. Like, the identity piece has just really changed.
What would you say is the biggest difference?
Funny, my husband and I were having a conversation about this the other day. And one of the things I was thinking, this sounds, this will make sense through the context of acting. This is a stereotype and a generalization, so this is not everyone, but I find a lot of us who are actors and go into that world are craving validation and are craving, just want to say, you're so good at what you do. And I think one of the really big differences is, not that I'm not human, I don't crave validation. I've just really shifted from, I want the external world to give that to me, to I give that to myself. I give way less F's, and I really validate and like and trust myself. And I think that's probably one of the biggest identity shifts.
And I
Does
think,
that make sense?
yes, and I think that's one of the reasons why your business is doing so well, because for you, it was the validation. I hope people like me. For a lot of people, is the money to get the validation or to prove some people wrong, or, whatever that external thing might be. But when you decide you don't need it and maybe you already had it, again, that's when kind of the world shifts around you.
I got
My
goosebumps when you said that. It's just so true.
And every single time my business just went, was going and effortlessly, it was because I needed nothing.
I feel like our conversation keeps circling back around that, to that concept. And it's just so true. And the fascinating thing when I look at my identity and I look at my journey, I think I've always been a really great coach. I think that's a skill set I have that I've honestly honed over time. But I think I was great. I helped someone scale to $1 million my first year in business, but I didn't have this identity piece, right? I was still very much in if I look back, I don't think I would have known it then, in this, I need someone to approve of me, to validate me, kind of this chasing mentality we're talking about. And I really do think that's been one of the biggest shifts, where when we don't need that, right? When we give that to ourselves, whether it's we don't need the validation, or we don't feel like we need the money, or we don't need the clients, the irony is the more of that you get, and you're just so spot on. But the funny thing is, the external doesn't necessarily have to change that much. It's not like my strategy changed. It's not like my skill set changed. It's not like, oh, I did this thing and it blew me up and I went viral. It's none of that. It's literally all an internal shift that then shifts the external.
Yeah.
And I think that's so much of what you're saying.
And it's interesting because we're moving more and more towards this understanding of, energy is creating matter and not the other way around, right? Yeah, actually, yeah. Matter doesn't necessarily create energy, just it's a different expression of it for sure. Speaking of energy, how has your actress energy served you in your coaching journey?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. How's my acting energy? I think it's served me, gosh, in so many different ways. I think I don't know if this is what you're asking, so you can point me in a different direction if this is not exactly what you mean, but I think one of my skill sets is being able to literally get into the mind of someone else. That's what you do as an actor, right? And embody them and be them. And so I think it's helped me, to shift my own personal identity, right? I can think of what is that next level identity for myself, and kind of step into, and not act it, but literally be it, become it, as Joe Dispenza would say.
Yeah.
But I think with clients as well, when we're looking at who are their ideal clients, how do we market to them? How do we come up with messaging that's going to really speak to them? How do we navigate the sales process? What's going on with that person? I think it's very easy for me to slip into their ideal client's head, or into their ideal person's head. And so in that way, the energy piece can be really useful. I don't know if that's exactly what you meant by your question, but so feel free again to ask me something clarifying if you meant something a little different.
I think it's a perfect answer. Yeah, and I can totally see you embodying their ideal client and saying, this kind of speaks to me. This one, not so much. So that's priceless, actually.
I think so. I mean, not to do this, but I think so. I think it makes one of my skill sets with clients in terms of like messaging, marketing, content, sales. Like I think that's something I can offer my clients, and just even the way we tap into their unique edge and their creativity in a different way.
Powerful, powerful. And if you could be known for one thing, what would that be?
Dropping some big questions. If I could be known for one thing, this is going to sound cheesy, but what comes up for me is, if I could be known for, I helped someone actually change their life for the better, in any kind of way, and I was someone who facilitated that to me is everything. I mean, yes, it's great if people make $1 million. Yes, it's great to me if people get the external rewards, but I mean, I'm a coach. Like, the thing that lights me up is like the $1 million is a representation of all the internal shifts someone's had, and to be known for that, and having that impact on a small scale with individuals, that to me would be everything.
Well, you're definitely living it, for sure.
Thank you.
And if there was one more thing you would like to be known for, what would it be?
Let's see, what else would I like to be known for? Such a good question. I think the mindset side of things, like if we're talking more like what would you be known for in your business, I think that blend of mindset with business, because I do think, I mean, there are definitely people doing that, but I think my unique lens and approach, where I'm blending the acting side of the entertainment world side of things with the business side of things, and then how that blends with the mindset and strategy side of things. I would love to be known for that, because I mean, that's literally my work and an embodiment of how I approach business and coaching.
I'm not sure if you'd be open to this, but there's these German coaches, like the top coaches in Germany, the Bollegs, and what stood out to me about them, they made rap videos talking about the coaching industry, why they're the best, why, imagine if Jay-Z was a coach, something like that.
I love it. I love it.
So maybe it would be fun for you to, maybe use this acting skill even more and make like a movie or something about the industry, or somebody having a very, very powerful transformation thanks to a coach. Something like, have you seen that movie on Netflix with Jonah Hill
Yeah.
and
Oh,
his therapist?
it's really brilliant. The documentary, or it's a documentary slash not a documentary.
It's
It's a
not
little bit of
exactly a
both.
movie. But the reason why it came to my mind was because it's bringing more light to how powerful this work is and how impactful it actually is.
Who knows? Maybe there's a future movie again in my life, even though I've put that chapter of my life away. Who knows? That might be in my future.
Yeah. And then we're
Could
going
be
to have
interesting.
another flood of 10 million coaches join the industry.
Yes, well, it is a very saturated industry, that is for sure. There is room for everyone, but
There
similar to
is.
that, I mean, I see that from the acting world. That was a very saturated industry, and then you see over time who are the people who are serious about it and who are the
Yeah.
people who, kind of fall away, which is okay too, where it's a stepping stone to what's right for each individual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was asking myself about that, why is it there's more and more and more coaches? And the answer that came up was kind of like, um because I like to dive into the metaphysical in many ways. I have a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about my experience talking to the mountains, and the mountains actually telling me, dude, you're more of a shaman than you know. Come on, it's time to wake up, right? And the feeling that I got was that the planet, the Earth, is kind of producing coaches at a mass scale because we are needed for that next level of consciousness that we're tapping into as a collective. So if there wasn't a need for this many of us, we wouldn't be as many or more.
I think it's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what came up. Beautiful. And I hope you continue facilitating so much more change for coaches, because our work is exceptionally important, and more and more experts should thrive with this work.
Yeah, I think this work, I mean, it's changed my life. I've seen it change my client's life. I think it's really impactful and powerful. And like, I mean, I loved your story of why you think it's growing. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think people need this. I do think we'll see over the next decade how I don't know when you came into the industry, but when I came into the industry, a coach or a life coach or anything like that, people are like, you mean like a basketball coach? Like people had no idea what it meant. And I think
Yeah.
now it's becoming more commonplace where we get what it is. And I think 10 years down the road, we're going to see that, I mean, everyone has a coach. And I think we're just going to see that more and more normalized because of how beneficial it is and how it really can help people in so many different ways and niches. So yes,
Yeah.
for everyone listening, you're doing important work. Keep doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. I agree. Beautiful. Some people like to keep their goals close to their chest, and that's totally fine. But I was curious, like, what's one goal that you're aiming for right now, or are you in the state that there is nothing to aim for and you're just like surrender and flowing? Like, where are you?
I'm a yes and for that, meaning a little bit of both. I'm very much in a place of if nothing were to change in my business and
Yeah.
this is what it were to look like, which I mean, life is changed. I find that to be hard to believe to be true, but I'm so grateful and I love my business and I love what we built and we're fully booked. Like if nothing changes, I'm set
Yeah.
financially and like we could just like nothing needs to change. I'm very happy with where we're at. And with the revenue share model I use for my one-on-one, there's a lot of potential to scale one-on-one. So I'm also very open to scaling a one-on-one coaching practice to $1 million. I just have no time frame on that and I have no attachment to it. It's sort of like if that happens, beautiful, because that means my clients are making incredible money and doing well. If not, incredible because my clients are making incredible money and I'm doing incredibly well. It's sort of like a yes and there.
Beautiful. And I love how you're embodying the concepts, because that's the state of freedom that we're really looking for as entrepreneurs. It's not the money, it's not the achievements, the validation, it's the state of peace of whatever happens, I'm gonna be great and it's gonna be beautiful. I'm just gonna enjoy it and roll with it. I love that.
Yeah. And to be fair, I do really like the money side as well. I think I've just
No
found
way.
like a nice healthy balance with that where, like I think I'm at a place too, and just to normalize for people, I think I'm very aware that if I make more money in my life, not that much more will change. I will pay more
Yeah.
taxes. Maybe I'll move to a bigger place in New York City, but like outside of that, like I already have everything I want. And like it'll be some more money that I'm investing, like not that much will change. And I also want to be so mindful for someone who's maybe starting in business. Like that, this was not the case for me 7 years ago. Like making more money literally changed the quality of my life
Yeah.
dramatically. So it's much easier for me to say that now. I just don't want to get it twisted chasing something that I know at this stage is not going to make a huge difference on my life unless that is also going to internally fulfill me. Does that make sense?
Yes, and as a caveat that I would also like to add, the fact that, like you said, I'm in a position where I making more money is not gonna make a big difference for me, right? You're kind of embodying the millionaire mindset, the millionaire state. And for in the beginning, that's extremely hard because more money will make a huge, it will literally change everything, will change your life,
Literally.
right?
Yes. Yes.
But the thing is, like, when you tap into that state of more money is not going to change much for me, you're actually embodying that millionaire version of you, that abundant version of you. And you're saying, yeah, whatever, right? And that's a very, very important shift to make for anyone, whether you're on an entrepreneur listening or, if you just doesn't matter. You have your job, you have your 9 to 5, you're doing charity work. That's literally the embodiment of that, the highest version of you. More money is not going to change my life, even though it will, but you pretend it won't. You step into
Or you just
power.
see how it's, I will say, so when I started my business, I was literally like paycheck to paycheck in New York City. I couldn't afford my coach and I had to get very resourceful. So in every way, when I made more money, it changed everything. And
Mm-hmm.
for that to happen, I very much remember like a line in the sand moment and even a conversation with my coach where I had to first get to the place of like, I'm good now. Look at how much I
Yeah.
have now. Because even at that place, and I realize I'm a very privileged white female, and I understand, like I acknowledge that. So in that place, I was still so abundant. I still had so much. Like there, and the moment I could see that and get out of this, I need more to be okay. I need more to feel successful. I literally remember walking on the street in New York City when I had that like shift internally.
Yeah.
That's when my business started doing better as well, just to really affirm and give evidence of what you're talking
I
about.
bet. I bet. 100%. 100%. That's literally how it works. Something came up when you were sharing that. I don't remember right now. Maybe we can save it for another conversation, another interview. Beautiful. Kim, thank you so much for making the time once again. Guys, absolutely check out Kim's work. I'll be plugging your website down below and your social media, your Facebook group. Oh yeah, I remember what I wanted to ask you. You
Yeah, ask
said
it.
you said you were going paycheck to paycheck and you couldn't afford your coach, right? I've been in
Yeah.
that situation a few times, right? I borrowed money for coaching, but I always made more money than the money that I borrowed. So what do you say to somebody who, uses this as an excuse? I don't have the money right now. It's not the right time, blah blah blah. Let me just figure, like, a lot of people are in this delusion that if they just spend more time working on the thing, they're going to eventually figure it out. So their plan is to spend more time with the person that's keeping them stuck themselves.
Right. Right. My thought process when I made that investment, I believe in coaching first and foremost. So I believe in the power of coaching, and I've always had a coach, and I don't want to create that narrative. If you're a coach, you have to have a coach, but it is darn helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand how business and investments go in terms of if I invest in the stock market, I have to invest money first in order to get a return. I can't sit around and wait for the return to invest. And if I wait and watch the stock market for it to have its numbers go up, it's too late for me to invest because now I'm just buying a very expensive investment. And similarly with
Mm-hmm.
businesses, and not everyone's gonna be a business coach, but health is the same way, right? We could use health as an example. If I
Yeah.
want to have 6-pack abs or be super fast at running or super in shape, I have to invest time, energy, resources first to then get the result. In business, we have to invest upfront to get the result. Like that's just the nature of results. So I think because I saw this with acting, did this for 10 years acting, right? I need to invest in training and coaching and things first, and then later get the result. So I think I just have enough experience in my life to see invest first, result later. So when I was building my business and I believe in coaching and I see I'm smart at business, I know what creates results. I'm not getting results. I'm the problem. So I mean, I don't call myself a problem. Like I need help. Of course, I'm going to invest in coaching. And if I can't afford it, of course, then my mindset is I'm going to get resourceful. I borrowed and I honestly picked up a second job so that I could pay for my coaching.
Love that.
But so that's what I would offer for everyone. And what I would say, whether you're having a sales conversation where this is something coming up for someone, or this is you and you're navigating this, I think it can just be helpful to look at what's the thing under the thing, because usually when we say I can't afford it, I don't have the time, I'm not ready. Assuming there's an alignment to the thing we want to invest in, assuming we believe that that thing could help us, usually then what's coming up is I'm scared. I'm going to show up and still not get the result. I'm freaking out for X, Y, and Z. I did something in the past that didn't work out. What if I fall on my face, right? And so then it's just easier for us to say whatever that surface level story is. It's the same with anything in life. So I think that can just be a helpful, whether you're supporting someone through it in a sales conversation or supporting yourself through it, just to look at, so what else could be true here? Like what's the pattern underneath this that might be showing up for me?
I love that.
That makes sense.
Yes, 100%. That's a powerful question to ask yourself, because that's, you're going to uncover the truth when you do it. Beautiful. Kim, thank you so much for this powerful conversation.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. It was so nice to see you again. And thank you for having this platform and your awesome questions.
Thank you. And looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see you soon.
Beautiful. Guys, let us know in the comments what were your most powerful, most impactful insights. And get in touch with Kim. Tell her, what you loved about this interview. Send her a message or get in touch with her in her Facebook group, make a post. And that's going to be interesting feedback for us for our following future interview, maybe, potentially.
I'm here for it.
Beautiful. Thank you.